All right, welcome in. We are live. Day one recap of the free agency period. I am having trouble going live with the Twitterverse for some reason, but
I've noticed that. Yeah, it
I
says
don't know
that
what's
we're
happening.
live.
Yeah, so at least on the YouTube we're live.
Twitter's got its own thing going on these
It
days.
might not be us. It's probably not us. I
It's
feel like we're
probably Twitter. So
yeah. All right. Well, what are you gonna do?
yeah,
All right. Anything happened today? How you doing?
yeah, fun day. I mean, it was not what Bears fans expected, but this Bears fan is happy. I think they've done a really good job so far, and it's half a day into the early negotiation period. Free agency hasn't started yet, so there's some fans that are freaking out. Why haven't they signed this guy or that guy? And take it easy, man. We got time here. We'll be fine.
Our friend Bill Zimmerman tweeted out like, "Yeah, Mike McGlinchey and Bobby Okereke, like those guys. Those are the guys that are. How would everybody feel? Like those are the guys." And I was like, "Hey, those are the free squares on the bingo card. Like everybody knows those are going to happen. Those did not happen.
Those did
So
not happen.
it's
Yeah.
very funny, right? Like you think you know, you think you got an idea, and then somebody comes in over the top. The Broncos come in and say, "We would like Mike." Mid Glinchy. What was that? People calling him mid Glinchy.
That's just mean right there.
Listen, he's an average right tackle. He would have been a very nice upgrade from what the Bears were playing with last year. It's a lot of money. And I think in some ways you have to kind of look at that and say, well, Poles wasn't going to, he has all the money, but he doesn't necessarily have to be foolish with how he spends it. I'm not saying that's a foolish contract or anything like that, but that is a very rich contract for a guy who's going to give you average tackle play, which again would be a great thing for the Bears to have because they do not have that right now.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I'm not worried about that one. I'm really not worried about missing out on the center prospect. I never even learned his name. Posich,
Ethan Pochich, yeah.
Pochik, whatever. Don't care. He went back with the Browns. They didn't sign him. That's fine. Like it's okay. The Bears are gonna. I'm sure they got a plan. Maybe we can get into that at some point in the show. But I got my eye on the draft for the cluster of picks in the late second, early third. There's 3 center prospects that people are liking and talking about as in that area. I feel like the Bears are in the market for that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm about.
We started the podcast. Are we official? Is this still the pre-show
I'm
banter?
just rapping. That's
all good.
You want to get into it quick, and you want to keep your powder dry, don't you? You want to get into this.
I'm good. I'm still here trying to share things. Like you said, Twitter's not catching, so I'm going to go ahead to our WCG Twitter page and go ahead and share the YouTube video because Twitter doesn't want to cooperate. So,
again, I'm sure that has nothing to do with the massive number of layoffs and whatever else that happened there. I mean, I don't think no one got those all 4 right. I don't think Edwards was anybody's radar necessarily, but it's there's nothing wrong with it. We'll get into that. Edmunds was sort of like hey, this is kind of the like premier potential option, but it's probably going to be Bobby Okereke.
Yeah.
Okereke. Man, see, I didn't learn to say his name right.
I always learned them after the
matter.
fact. Like Equanimous St. Brown.
Yeah.
I never knew the hell his name until he was a Bear. When he's a Bear, okay, now I got to learn this guy's name. I'm going to be talking about him and writing about him. I still can't spell him. I still got to look that up every time just because.
Yeah, I just need a hotkey for that.
Yeah.
Someone said it sounds like carrot cake.
I did see that.
Okereke.
But now I don't have to. I don't care
because it doesn't matter.
He's in. Where'd he go? New York.
He's a Giant.
Okay.
So yeah, who cares?
Who cares?
All right. So you got everything shared?
Yeah, I think I'm good here. We're good. We're good now. So let's get this popping here.
Let's launch into this. Who's the 4th? Am I missing somebody? Who's the 4th guy? Somebody said, did anybody get the first 4 right?
Oh, I had a prediction article where I predicted the Bears' first 4 signings, and
Oh,
I got them all wrong. But I'm fine with it because I
oh,
like the guys they got.
I would have gotten them wrong too. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought there was a fourth signing I didn't pick up because I only have 3.
It might happen while we're live here because it's
That'd be
still day
cool.
1. Yeah.
Yeah, well, keep an eye out. Break it to us. No fake reports. I don't want any fake reports in the comments. Don't be
Yeah.
doing Orlando Brown just signed. Don't do that. Okay. Now that I said that, of course, 17.
It's gonna
people are
happen. We're not gonna believe him. You're
right.
the boy who cried wolf.
All right. Welcome to Bear and Balance. I'm Jeff Berckes, a writer for Windy City Gridiron, and I'm joined by the editor of that fine website, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, first day of the unofficial, official free agent, whatever the heck it is. The Bears signed some guys. They got better today. How about you? How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's a very busy day. I was talking to you a little bit pre-show that this is the day I should have took off work because, I had a ton of pre-write stuff done just because I knew that I had to be prepared because I don't have time to kind of, juggle all my stuff. But yeah, busy day. It would have been much easier and much more fun if I took off. I could have done a little bit more on the site. But um, Eric Christopher DeWachter stepped up and wrote a couple articles. Jacob had a pre-write in there. Josh had a pre-write in there. So we had a lot of stuff going on there. A lot of prepared behind the scenes stuff. So yeah, we had everything covered in the site, and the site has been jumping the last few days. Well over 100,000 paid views a day. The podcast channel has been jumping. The YouTube channel has been jumping. So we appreciate all you guys checking us out wherever you check out our content.
Yeah, absolutely. And we appreciate that. We're going to have a ton more coming at you in the podcast form and the video form and on the website as well. So appreciate you sticking with us. Excitement's there. I mean, I'm starting to feel it. I know you're starting to feel it, right? You're starting to get that excitement buzzing. Free agent. The Bears got better today. There's no way around it. It's good stuff. It's always fun when you get to welcome new Chicago Bears to the fold. And I think that there's some really fun stuff to talk about. So when you talk about the Chicago Bears, Lester, what position comes to mind first?
It's all but the linebackers.
Linebackers, right? So that's where we're going to kick off because the Bears definitely addressed the linebacker position on day 1 of free agency. Maybe a little bit of surprise that they would double dip there. And I want to talk about what that means for the only other linebacker that's on the roster right now and a fan favorite, Jack Sanborn. But let's talk about the big ticket item first, even though that one broke a little later, and that's Tremaine Edmunds. So he is a 25-year-old or going to be 25 years old.
So young.
Young guy, came into the league super young. So he is already has 5 years in Buffalo under his belt. So that's kind of crazy. 2 Pro Bowls.
Yeah.
Like I think people forget this is a pretty high ceiling player. Missed a few games last year, but the thing that the book on him was he would look a little lost in coverage. But he's got length. He's a perfect guy in this Eberflus defense, but he figured out coverage last year. That's the story right now, is that he looked great in coverage, which was the piece of his game that was missing there. He could get exposed a little bit. He's cleaned that up. And when you have a guy that fits exactly what you want in a football player in the defense, a new head coach, right? This looks like everything kind of lined up to say, go get him. That's the perfect fit.
Yeah, you talk about the length. He's 6'5", like 250. He has the size, he has the speed. He still has that sideline to sideline speed. I know when he was coming out, I looked at him kind of like the same way as Brian Urlacher. That really tall, long guy. I always thought, man, he'd be great in a cover 2 base scheme, a Tampa 2-esque scheme. He's got the length, he can cover the zone. But like you said, his pass coverage was a little down early in his career, but he came in the league at 20. He's still 24 years old. He's a 5-year pro, and he doesn't turn 25 till next month. So there's a lot of good football left in front of him. Maybe his best football is left in front of him. I saw the next gen stats. I think it was earlier today. They tweeted out. They talked about his coverage. His yards per target. That's a big stat. His was one of the top in the NFL for linebackers. So his coverage is there. He's great against the run. He's got the size, the length. He's just a perfect fit. And, I didn't think he was going to happen because of the price tag. I figured,
Right.
Since they let Roquan go, I thought, they have a ceiling. But when you look at his contract, maybe this is the deal they had in mind for Roquan all along. And of course, Roquan wanted more. Roquan didn't have an agent. Roquan had some minor off the field issues that maybe they were a little concerned about. So with this guy, it's just, perfect timing. He's a free agent, fits a need, lock it up.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about that right now? So Roquan Smith, started off his career in, good football player. I mean, no one's going to take that away from him. Good football
Really
player.
good, yeah.
But enough things happening off the field,
small things,
that give you some concern, right? Where it's just enough where you're like, is this guy making smart decisions, right? Do you want to give this guy all of the money and trust that he's going to make smart decisions, right? So that is something to keep in mind going into negotiations with Ryan Poles, where he doesn't hire representation and then sort of uses the media to sort of lash out, even though it looked like Poles was maybe doing him a solid, keeping him like active, but he didn't have to practice, right? And I think he kind of burned that bridge, and Poles was looking to move him. Probably knew he wasn't going to re-sign him. He was able to then get some value out of that player by trading him to Baltimore, who is the perfect destination for Roquan Smith. Like Roquan made out beautifully in that. Like, he didn't send him to Siberia. He got him to Baltimore, which is a perfect destination for the type of player that he is. He's going to be able to thrive in Baltimore more than he would anywhere else. So that's great for Roquan. But Poles gets back a second round pick. He is in a fifth round pick, right? He's able to not pay Roquan and keep that money reserved for, now as we see it, Tremaine Edmunds, plus who comes a little cheaper, right? So you get player capital. You get a guy who's probably a better fit for that will linebacker position in Tremaine Edmunds than Roquan was. Again, Roquan, very good football player, but maybe not the perfect fit for what Coach Eberflus wants in that particular spot. And you're able to move on from the baggage. Like, there's just no real downside here. And I think it's a real win. And I think that Bears fans probably they haven't soaked up just how fun of a player Tremaine Edmunds is yet, but I'm sure they will once they start viewing some of these highlight films. He's going to be a fun one to watch.
Well, you mentioned the will, and he's always been a Mike in Buffalo, but it's a little different scheme. So when the signing first happened, I was wondering what's going to happen. I actually talked to Greg Gabriel, our guy. He believes that it's going to be, like you said, Tremaine Edmunds at the will. The guy we'll talk about in a second, or TJ Edwards at the mic. And, it's just a good complement of players. Their games complement each other. It's like you said, it's linebackers at Chicago. Is it what we thought would happen here on the first day of free agency? Two expensive linebackers? No, but it fits a need, and it helps set that defense up.
Well, let's talk about the other linebacker then. So TJ Edwards came into the league from Wisconsin as a UDFA, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Played for the Eagles. Now, so there's a familiarity there with Ian Cunningham, who was the assistant GM under Ryan Poles. I'm sure that had something to do with it here. Smart, instinctive player, guy that they couldn't keep off the field. This is kind of the story with him, is that he just proved that he belonged on the field. Sound like another Wisconsin Badger linebacker that you've heard of recently, Bears fans? Yeah, it just so happens that I believe that Jack Sanborn replaced TJ Edwards at the Wisconsin lineup once he left school. So he's going to be reunited with an old friend there. To me, that means that Edwards is going to be slated to start at the mic, and you're going to have Jack Sanborn probably back him up at the mic and then play the Sam linebacker. So Jack Sanborn at this point, he's going to be the Sam linebacker, the strong side linebacker is what that means. I guess I assume that everybody knows that. So the middle linebacker, M, Mike. The weak side linebacker is the Will, starts with a W, and then the Sam backer is the strong side backer. So that's where the tight end is, the formation is the strong side. So you'll see that. Anyway, I assume everybody has heard those terms, but maybe no one's ever defined them for you.
It's good to drop some football 101 out there.
A little football 101 every once in a while doesn't hurt anything. Yeah. So So I think the Bears have their linebacking core
Yeah.
for the next few years. I mean, because I think they're definitely happy with Sanborn, and he gets it to be settle into a really good position for his skill set, which is the Sam.
Well, like you said, when he was a UDFA coming out, he was everyone's pick. Yeah, this is the one guy that'll make the roster as a UDFA, and most people thought, he'll fit at the Sam. They weren't quite sure he had the athleticism or the speed to play the Mike or the Will in this scheme, but kind of like TJ Edwards, he doesn't have the testing numbers, but when you look at what he does on film, he has good instincts. He's a smart football player. That's Wisconsin. I mean, their linebackers, they always come to the league with that. They understand football and they come in that way. And it's just a great deal for the Bears. He was their first signing. Again, unexpected. He may have came in a little lower than some people thought, but maybe he just wanted to come home. I mean, he's from the Chicagoland area, Lake County, Illinois, Lindenhurst. So maybe he just wanted to come closer to home. And for the Bears, it's great because now they got, like you said, their linebacking core is set. Sanborn is in a perfect spot as a former UDFA. He'll play the Sam, which is, 30-ish% of the time on the field. But again, he has the skills and he can back up at the mic. He could play the Will in a pinch. So you have three good linebackers, obviously two at, more of a Pro Bowl level. But, who knows the ceiling for Sanborn?
Yeah, and I think it's still a starting position. Again, this is not a Sanborn podcast. I already called him Sanborn a podcast, but it's not necessarily. I wouldn't take it as a demotion. He's still going to be on the field a lot. He's still
Yep.
probably going to be a core special teamer. Like he's going to be a part of the plans for this team. I certainly think that. But you have a more proven player in TJ Edwards and good football player. And like you said, local product, former. Quarterback in high school, right? So he's
Yeah.
got he's got the brain, right, to kind of see everything, and that in the middle linebacker position, that's really important. His deal, 3 years, $19.5 million, $4.5 million signing bonus. It's a bit widely considered a very nice deal for TJ Edwards. Just going back to the Edmunds contract. Edmunds makes a little bit more money.
Yeah.
So Edmunds signed. It's a 4-year deal worth $72 million, with $50 million of that guaranteed. So it's a big number. Our friend Brad Spielberger mentioned about how it's a big number, but it's not a 5-year contract, which
No.
a lot of linebackers were getting 5-year contracts. And so Poles, I think, was able to make sure that he kept this contract on his timeline, which I think is important to note, that it's not a 5-year deal, it's a 4-year deal. So he has an idea of what he's trying to sign here for this player and for this particular competitive window arc.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good deal all around. The money you look at, you're like, that's a lot of money. But again, we're talking about two players at two premier positions in this scheme, making a tiny bit more than Roquan is making in Baltimore. So the math adds up in the Bears' favor in this case. And like you said, it's a lot of money, but we're talking about a player that's not quite 25 years old yet. So I'm excited. I mean, this is a great deal for the Bears. I think they're looking good here. Coach Flus, he wants those linebackers. Now, what's happened at a D line? Because you got to have the front four here. Because right now it's pretty much Justin Jones and the Pips back there, and Justin Jones is nowhere near the star quality. He's another rotation. It's more like the Pip and then the non-Pips, because Justin Jones should be the Pip. And I just dated myself because people are like,
oh
"Who the hell
my,
are the Pips?" Yeah,
I
what the
mean,
hell's happening?
we'll get into a little bit of like what does this mean for the defensive line in the second part of the show, and the offensive line. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but let's talk about interior offensive line.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the third signing for today, Nate Davis. Good football player, solid guard for the Titans. Certainly knows how to run block.
Yeah.
Right. You play for the Titans, you got to know how to run block. Good player, good football player. So the Bears were able to add a piece there. I want to ask you this. He has played every snap of his of his 4 years in the National Football League at right guard. Tevin Jenkins played most of the year at right guard for the Bears. Cody Whitehair is the left guard for the Bears, in and out of the lineup with some injury issues, has a history at center. You've got Lucas Patrick, who took like 8 snaps at center last year, got hurt multiple times because of the Sam Mustipher voodoo doll. So what is the plan for Nate Davis? Do you see him as a right guard, like where he has naturally been for the duration of his career? Do you see him as a left guard to make that swap and maybe kick Whitehair either off or in? Or what do you see? Like, I guess those are the options. You signed him to start. So which are you doing? You put him in his natural position or you flipping him over?
The way the roster's set now, your three best interior guys are Jenkins, Davis, and Whitehair. Whitehair makes a lot of money. We've talked about it on the show before. Cutting him or trading him, post June 1, you're going to save a little bit, but it's not a huge savings where you're like, oh my God, we got to get him off the roster. He's just a hole, and we talk about that. You don't want to create a hole unless you have to. So I could see Whitehair sticking around. I mean, maybe he's cut in the offseason. Maybe a center shakes loose or another guard shakes loose and they do get rid of him. But right now, the way it's constructed, maybe he does go back to center. Then as far as Tevin Jenkins on the right side, man, he just settled in. You really want to mess with him if you think he's a building block for your future? Maybe not. This is the discussion I'm sure the Bears had with Nate Davis before they signed him. So wherever he's going to play, he knows. I mean, he knows what he's doing. I'm sure they had to talk to Jenkins too if they're going to make a switch there. But I don't know. Maybe Davis is the guy that goes to left guard. Maybe Cody goes to center. Maybe Jenkins sticks where he's at. I don't see any scenario where Jenkins goes out to tackle. I mean, this regime made it pretty clear that's not happening.
That would be an awkward conversation, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Hey, Tevy, what's up, man? Just
drama.
Just spitballing here, but like, would you want to go back out to tackle after we pretty much almost cut you or traded you because you wouldn't go to guard? Anyway, that's not going to happen. I think he's going to stay at guard. I think you're right. I think that does mean that Cody Whitehair is probably going to be penciled in right now as your center. I think that does not take a center prospect off in the draft.
Oh no, yeah.
There are several that are interesting in the draft.
Yep.
3 names that are popping up regularly, all Big Ten centers, which, in my opinion, good bet. Yeah, take a Big Ten center. You're going to be okay. And so you got 3 picks in that late second, early third rounds, perfect center territory. I think that you can pretty much pencil one of those picks in for center at this point right now. That's fine. Whitehair, to me, I've always been critical of him as a center in the past because he looks like a guard playing center, but he can do it. And he's a veteran. He's smart. He can make line calls. We know all of that. We know that he can be successful in that role and certainly can extend his Bears career by making that sacrifice or move back to the center position. And you've seen that in the past. I'm thinking about Roberto Garza taking that guard for a long time for the Bears and then kicked in after Olin left. He didn't quite retire right away, right? But he left Chicago and Garza took over the center position for a couple of years. So I can see that kind of being the old veteran guy who he can provide that leadership. He can kind of kick in. I don't know that that's going to keep him healthier or not, but hopefully he can remain healthy. Hopefully Nate Davis and Tevin Jenkins coming back stronger from his injury issues. Maybe 2 solid guards can help Cody Whitehair at the center position. That's interesting. I certainly hadn't thought about Whitehair moving back to center until they signed Nate Davis. So that's an interesting proposition. Why don't we take a quick break and then let's talk about what's left and what didn't happen. Stick with us. All right, Lester, we're back. So let's talk about what didn't happen today. Yeah. And what didn't happen was that right tackle Mike McGlinchey, who was the guy that everybody had signed up for the Bears. Like he was already moving his belongings to Chicago. Like this thing was wrapped up. This was the one sure bet that everybody had on their bingo card. Denver comes in last minute and they come over the top and Ryan Poles says, no, thank you. What did you think of when you saw the Broncos agree to sign Mike McGlinchey?
I had a feeling that McGlinchey would not fit in Chicago because of the money and because of he's coming from the Niners, coming from a winning organization, so you're going to have to pay over the top to get him to come here. Denver, while they've had a down year last year, they've had a better track record in the past. So, I mean, like you said, huge money to go to Denver. I was a little surprised that, that's where he ended up, but I had a feeling he wouldn't end up in Chicago somehow, some way. I just had a feeling that wasn't going to happen. I thought they would kind of pivot and go somewhere else, and we still haven't seen them do anything at right tackle. So, as far as McGlinchey goes, you talked about it on the pre-show a little bit. He's an average football player. I mean, he is a good run blocker. That's what he's in the league for. He's known for that. As a pass protector, not the best. I mean, I'm not saying he's bad by any means. He's just, he has his moments in pass pro where he gets his feet a little tangled up, gets a little off balance on occasion, but as a run blocker, road grader. He would have been an upgrade in Chicago, 100% sure, because last year was Riley Reif, Larry Borum, not getting the job done. Would have been an upgrade. All these guys that are off the market would have been an upgrade. So who knows? I mean, you talk about who else is off the market. Also, Juwan Taylor going to the Kansas City Chiefs to play left tackle, a career right tackle going to the left side. They made that decision already. Kind of strange to me that you would do that with a guy, especially when you have a Pro Bowl left tackle there in KC already, who you could have brought back. But, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs know what they're doing. And plus, if you're Juwan Taylor and it's like, hey, we got to offer here and we got to offer here. Oh, I can go to play with the Chiefs, the Super Bowl champs with Pat Mahomes. Yeah, I'm going to go over there. So at the end of the day, some of these guys, it's not just about the money. It's about a good fit for them, good fit for their family, good fit for their career. And Juwan Taylor wants to go win a ring.
Well, let's talk about Taylor first. So Taylor comes from Jacksonville. He has one good year, and that's the year that Doug Peterson arrives, right?
Yep.
I mean, before this, he was pretty well, a lot of mud thrown at him. They even drafted his replacement because it wasn't working out in Jacksonville, right? And that's why Jacksonville let him go. He has one good year. I'm not saying that he can't duplicate that, but he goes to the same system, right? Doug Peterson comes from the Andy Reid tree, right? Like, so all that stuff kind of fits, right? Playing left tackle though, okay, like good luck. It probably will work out because it's Kansas City and Pat Mahomes will figure it out, right? So good for them. That's fine. I didn't necessarily see that as a huge fit the whole time. I'm not surprised that Chicago wasn't in on Juwan Taylor. But if they were trying, that's a pretty obvious career choice for Juwan Taylor to make is, hey, you're going to give me the premier spot on the premier team. I mean, that has to feel pretty good.
Plus some premier money there too.
Yeah, well, the money doesn't hurt, right? Yeah. Let's talk about money with Mike McGlinchey, because again, the Bears, I think, were in on him pretty hard. McGlinchey signs for 5 years, $87.5 million in Denver. Would you have felt good about that contract if it was Ryan Poles writing that check?
I would have, because that's what I expected going in. I just expected him to overpay for right tackle. I think it was Conklin a few months ago. He signed a big money deal. It kind of set the right tackle market at that point. Next guy getting paid always goes over the top. So I expected it to happen. Plus, going from convincing a guy to come to a 3-win team, whether the arrow's pointing up or not, you still got to convince him to come. So it's going to take a little extra money. So if that would have been the deal, I would have been fine with it because that's what I expected. But I wrote about it the other day. He wasn't my top choice at right tackle for the Bears. So I'm okay that he went elsewhere. I'm a little surprised they still have a hole there. So we'll kind of see how that shapes up here in the next few days. Maybe they kind of, I'm not going to say punt on the position, but maybe they kind of go a little cheap and then they go in the draft. I mean, there's a lot of things to do here. Greg Gabriel tweeted out earlier today that, the draft and the free agency go hand in hand. If you can't get the guys you really want, it's not ideal to go to the draft with needs. So I'm sure they'll get someone. But worst case scenario, it's a pretty strong right tackle draft. It's a pretty strong center draft. So there's some options here.
Yeah, I think as of right now, you have to think that pick number 9 is certainly being talked about in terms of trying to fill that right tackle position. There is another right tackle that a lot of people were talking about that's, I believe, still unsigned. So that's the Caleb McGarry, who's from the Falcons.
Yeah.
So that's still a possibility. We'll keep our eyes on that. I know that there's some people that didn't necessarily think that he was all that good of a fit. Here's another player that had his best year this year. So you're kind of betting on one good year of tape, and before that was maybe not as high. Didn't have the pedigree of a Juwan Taylor, who struggled in his early career and had one year. So you are kind of at that like next level already, where McGlinchey has pedigree and then has sort of like mid-level tape. Like he's kind of established himself like he's an average starter, right? Like and again, average would be a huge upgrade from what the Bears were playing. Like, please do not get me wrong. I would have
Yeah.
been fine with it. It is a lot of money for Mike McGlinchey, though. And so, in some ways, I'm fine with them missing out on that. That's okay. You do have 4 premium picks coming up in this draft. I think that as of right now, you have to think that they're going to use one on that. What about the defensive line? You mentioned a little bit here. I think that the 3 technique being talked about is such an important piece here. We've talked about how the defensive ends on this roster need huge upgrades. The current players at defensive end should be your number 3 and your number 4, in our honest opinion. And so far, we have not seen any defensive linemen sign with Chicago. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, it does. I thought they'd be pretty high on a few guys that went. We saw Javon Hargraves go, huge money. That's kind of what I expect them to get. I mean, the market's pretty high at that position. Interior defensive line has become one of the premier spots on your football team, and especially in the Bears scheme. That 3 tackle or the 3 tech defensive tackle. It's the engine that runs that defense. That's how they talk about it all the time. You got to find that guy. So the fact that Hargraves is gone. Draymond Jones still out there, but he's asking for a ton of money with that market is set. And I wrote about it the other day. I thought they'd be going after Draymond Jones, but I would not have been too excited with that signing because here's a guy coming from a 30-man front in Denver. He's never been a full-time 3-tech defensive tackle. Does he have the traits to play it? Yeah. Does he have the size? Sure. His skill set says he could do it, but as a professional, he never has been that full-time. So I'm not excited paying a guy top of the market price as a projection. That's just not something I'm excited to see happen. Plus, he's come off an injury. I think he missed his last few games last season. So, maybe there's some medicals that have to be in play here. Maybe we will see him come back around and sign him later because he's still, as of this recording, unsigned. But they got to get someone. You got to find someone there. Maybe they pivot and go more towards their 1 tech, which is the Shade who plays next to the 3 tech. And, maybe that's where they go there. Again, maybe they get some guys you're not expecting, kind of like fill the roster. Again, we're talking bare minimum. They're still going to upgrade what they had. The guys they had last year were not very good. We're talking replacing Mike Pennell. He's fine. I mean, he's not. He shouldn't be starting for your team. And Angelo Blackson was fine. But you could upgrade him pretty easily. You got to find some upgrades. Al-Quadem Muhammad, he's already been cut. It's not hard to upgrade him. So you're going to have to find someone here. But then again, we talk about the draft. The draft's pretty strong. There's some pretty good, edge players, some good defensive tackles that kind of fit the scheme. And who knows, maybe they kind of look that way as well.
Yeah, I guess there hasn't been a lot of players that have signed contracts yet, especially at the defensive end position. I haven't seen a lot fly off the board yet. So you still could see some movement there. They almost certainly have to bring in at least one free agent defensive end and likely one interior. I will be shocked if they don't bring in guys that are projected to start, right? Not just guys that you're signing to like fill the roster up, but like guys that you're saying, you're a starter. Like you're going to take starting reps. You're certainly penciled in that way. And so I think there's still plenty of work to be done here. There's still plenty of money that the Bears have to spend here. And again, the players that signed quickly, Javon Hargrave went to the Niners.
Yeah.
And wow, no one's going to want to play that defensive line. And it was a lot of money. It was a very big spend. And if you look at what Brian Poles has done so far in this offseason, he has signed players in their early mid-20s, right? And traded for DJ Moore. Again, younger guys who you are going to have the meat of their prime, right? Like, and that's what you like free agency for a team like the Bears should be. And so that's great. I like Javon Hargrave. He is a good football player. I like watching him play football. But is he on the same timeline as the Chicago Bears? No. Like he's ring shopping, right? Like
Yeah.
he's going to San Francisco to try to burnish his legacy and get a ring. He's 30 years old, right? How many more years does he have? He's probably got a few, right? Those guys can play for a few more years, but they also can break down a little bit, right? We saw that with Akeem Hicks, one of my all-time favorite players to watch, but he hit that 30-year-old mark, had a couple of injuries. Yeah, they were kind of fluky, but he could just kind of see it go down from there. It is what it is. Mid-20s guys, they're basically where they're at peak athletically, and they understand the game. They're used to it, the speed. They're smart football players. They've established themselves. There's that meat right there, that perfect window. That's where you want to see your money spent when you're on a timeline like the Bears are right now. If you were trying to, again, you were in the category of trying to chase a ring, that's when you go after a guy like Javon Hargrave. Oh, he's the piece that we need to kind of put us over the top. Makes perfect sense for the Niners to sign him. I saw it. I didn't expect it, but I saw it and I was like, oh yeah, that's such a fun signing for them, because that's just going to be nasty. Put him right next to Bosa. Like, it's ridiculous, right? So that's great. Like that makes total sense. Like, a lot of times you kind of step back. Oh yeah, that makes sense. It wouldn't have made that much sense to me had the Bears gone off for Hargrave and spent that kind of money, and they would have had to come over the top. I think quite a bit. I think they would have had to come over the top 10% or more to be able to convince him to come play for the Bears, as opposed to the Niners, where he can really wreck stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's some more options out there. It's just a matter of, again, you talk about the window. If you're looking at, there are going to be occasional, I'm sure, a few vets that come in a little older that Ryan Poles looks at and say, hey, this is a good locker room guy, good locker room presence. Maybe someone that's already won a ring. Maybe a guy like Fletcher Cox, the other defense tackle with Philly. He has a ring already from his time, a couple of years back when they did it with Nick Foles. So maybe he's looking for another nice little a contract to close out his career, where you can kind of come in, kind of mentor some guys, because you need to address the locker room also, and it can't all be young guys. You want to have a couple guys that come in and kind of come in in that mentorship role. So, a guy like Frank Clark is another edge. I think he's 29, 30 years old from the Chiefs. Maybe he comes in. So there'll be a couple signings like that where you're like, okay, that's a neat signing. Nothing where you're expecting like top level play, but you still got to fill your roster. And we're still replacing guys, like we said, like, Al-Qaeda Muhammad, and, I like Dominique Robinson's upside, but he shouldn't be starting at this point. Travis Gibson, maybe he just is who he is now. He's just a rotational piece, and that's fine. You need bodies, because right now I think you got to replace all four starters, and you're not going to get four huge money signings. So get what you can get and then pivot to the draft.
I want to talk about running back for a minute. What are you thinking about David Montgomery right now? I'm not feeling a lot of love coming from the Bears or David Montgomery's camp that there's going to be something happen. I think you would have heard something, just at least a little bit at some point, that, we're working on this or whatever. It just kind of feels like this might be over.
I think it was Kevin Fowler. Is that his name, from ESPN or NFL Network? I forget who it was. One of those insiders a couple of days ago had a report, said the Bears would like him back, but he'll probably test the market, which is probably the best thing to do. If you're the Bears, I mean, there was some talk they were in on Saquon that, of course, didn't happen. Miles Sanders is out there, kind of maybe fit the scheme. The Bears want more explosiveness, but you can't have an explosive running back unless that running back knows how to pass pro, how to play in the passing game. That's what you need. Monty gives you that, but he doesn't have the explosiveness. I would like Monty back. I just think he's a good football player, but the price has to be right. I think he's going to test the market. He'll see what's out there. And if no one comes to meet his demands, I think he comes back to the Bears and says, okay, what's the best offer? Let's play some football here. Because I think he likes Chicago. I think he understands, the market, but you still got to let a player. I mean, you're only a free agency the first time once. I mean, this is his chance to go out there and see what he can get. I think you'd be disappointed, because just, people don't value running backs like they used to, unless you're, top of the line, like Le'Veon Bell, Ezekiel Elliott when he got his money. Unless you're those guys at that level at that time, you're not going to get huge money. And I think that's where Monty is. We'll see what happens. I would like him back. I have my doubts.
Yeah, he's a good, solid running back. He's definitely a positive presence in the locker room, like all those things. Great teammate. I think that those things are in his favor. You could see him extending his Chicago career because of those things, but it does not sound like there's going to be a signing that's going to happen early in free agency. It's going to take some time. That is the reality of the the running back position. Linebackers, I mean, you kind of thought that, but those got scooped up. So
Yeah.
it's somewhat interesting that level usually mirrors each other. But so recently, running backs are just so not in demand, and they don't get paid nearly as much as they used to relative to the cap. So it's just interesting to see how much the game has changed. What also doesn't help Montgomery is that this draft class is particularly interesting and deep with running backs. I'll say that a lot, maybe, but this year I'm hearing more and more about, man, there's a lot of fun running backs in this draft. And so I think that's going to keep happening to these running backs. And that supply and demand issue really works against David Montgomery. So I don't, if I had to put my money on it right now, I don't think he's going to be back.
Well, this is the thing. I've said this numerous times. You cannot go into the season with Khalil Herbert as your number one.
I agree.
Because he's not the best in blitz pickup. He's not the best in pass pro. He's not the best receiver out of the backfield. He cannot be your RB1 heading into the season. Monty fits that role better. He's just not as explosive as Herbert. Herbert is explosive. I mean, he has the speed, very decisive as a runner where he just sees hole, hits hole, go. I mean, that's what you want in this scheme here. Monty dances a little bit too much on occasion, but that's sometimes what he's had to do throughout his career with the Bears because the line has not been the best. Herbert has taken advantage of some situations where he's able to get more yards. He can't be your number one, though. Unless, of course, this offseason he comes in and says, hey, guys, and he shows that the team in training camp that he did some stuff and, he's much better in blitz pickup. But throughout his first couple of years, that has not been his game. So you got to figure something out, whether it's Monty back or not. You got to find a veteran that you can come in and trust that will be able to play in the passing game.
Yeah, he's downright. Khalil Herbert is downright bad in pass pro. Like it is not something that you want to trust Khalil Herbert to do. Yeah, it's interesting. It's something to keep an eye on. It's something that we will get answers to, I think, in the next week or so. But it's not crazy to think that stuff drags out, right? You never know. These things could kind of carry on for a while as we reset after the waves of free agency happens. So I'd like to get just kind of your final thoughts before we take off here on free agency, what you expect, what you'd like to see, how Ryan Poles has played first day with all the money.
I think he's playing it great. I think this whole, the trade. We haven't talked about the trade, but DJ Moore much. We haven't talked about.
Oh yeah, we haven't. Let's talk about that. We should.
I thought it was an outstanding move. Getting back what they got back. Him valuing DJ Moore, over getting an additional first round draft pick, and it's like you got to have a balance. Like we saw the Rams had that. They wanted established veterans over these draft picks, so they basically built a championship roster off that philosophy. I think they went a little overboard. Now they're kind of stuck where they're kind of screwed. But I think if you're as a building franchise, you can get a guy like DJ Moore, who still has 3 years left on his contract, very reasonable contract. I think it's the cap hits 20 this year. Then it drops down to, I think, 16.5 for 2 years. And you're talking about a wide receiver 1, 3 more years of control. Again, younger, 25 years old. I'll take that over a first round pick gamble any day of the week. That was a great pick, a great decision by Poles to have him thrown into the deal there. Going back to 9, you're not going back too far. You're going to get a top prospect that spot. So I love everything Ryan Poles has done so far this offseason. Last offseason, we were critical of some of the moves he made, some of the non-moves he made, but this offseason, so far, so good.
Well, you say that he picked DJ Moore over the first round draft pick, but let's like even zoom in a little bit there. Still a second round draft pick in that 2025 draft. So I don't know if that was also on the table or if it was just downgraded. And then that's the 2025 draft. Like that's 2 years from now, right? So you get to have DJ Moore now when you need him and not a future roll of the dice. We don't know where we're going to pick and what that looks like in 2 years. So you get that now. You get a proven player now, plus you turned pick 1-1 into 4 other draft picks, which is great, right? Like, I mean, I think that that's just it's a fantastic return. I'm not saying they fleeced them or anything like that.
No.
You know, Carolina did what they needed to do. You know, they paid what they paid. It is what it is for quarterback. It is what it is to control the board, right? To come all the way up to 1, they get their pick of whoever they want now at this point. Like that, you have to pay a premium to be able to do that. But there was a point in the season where the Bears looked like they probably were going to draft 9th anyway, right? And then
Yeah.
they just sort of went on a crazy losing streak. Some of the games were pretty close. Some of them, were blowouts. But there was a time when I think we were all kind of expecting the Bears to be picking around the 9th pick anyway. They were going to steal a couple more wins down the stretch, and they didn't. They just lost everything, and then they got a little lucky with the days, a lot lucky with that Texans closing, right? And so this is a bit of a gift. And then I will say this, I was on right after this happened with Robert, but I will say this: these picks might not be the end of it, right? These picks can
No.
keep multiplying and growing, right? The Bears might trade down from 9 if they want to pick up another draft pick and there's a motivated team to come up to take someone who's sort of the last of a run or whatever, right? Like teams get motivated to move in the first round to take their guy because they get fixated. So polls could move back. That pick could grow, right? You could see next year's one. Where does Carolina land? Like how do they finish? Are they going to be a good football team? Their offense doesn't look very good. They got a good defense, but their offense doesn't look very good. They've got a new coaching staff. Maybe they're not a very good football team. Maybe they finish where the Bears get a top 10 pick, a top 5 pick. Maybe disaster strikes in Carolina and you get a top 2 pick, and all of a sudden you get one of those premium picks for those quarterbacks that everybody wants in next year's draft. Well, that gives you obviously the Justin Fields insurance, which I'm not interested in, or you trade out of that and you get even more pick. Like, it could be something that just kind of keeps on giving. You've now given yourself flexibility into the future and an immediate return to DJ Moore. Beautiful trade. I love it. The more that I've thought about that trade and what it means for the Bears, the more I love it.
Yeah, it's a good deal. I mean, you mentioned the Panthers are in a situation where they have a first-year head coach. There's no pressure to win there. They can kind of take their time, and they're going to draft a quarterback. They can sign a vet quarterback and kind of play him and bring the rookie along slowly. There is no pressure in Carolina for Frank Reich to kind of win now. He understands that. They know that as a franchise. So it's going to help the Bears if they lose. I mean, I'm sure they're doing Chicago no favors by making the Bears number 1 draft pick that much higher, but ultimately it's about what's best for their franchise. So force feeding a rookie, no matter who it is, at a quarterback with a really bad roster, it's not a good idea. We kind of saw that with the Bears firsthand a few times here. So maybe they sign a vet, kind of take their time, bide things over until they have a chance to put the rook in here, whether it's Young or Stroud, whoever they end up drafting. So great deal all around for Ryan Poles. And of course, free agency starts off, and again, it's not what we expected, but some really nice moves there, some nice signings. And hey, it's early. It's we're like 8 hours into the early negotiating window.
Yeah, there's going to be plenty more moves to happen here, and there are plenty of good football players that are still unsigned that would make the Bears a better football team. That's a good takeaway to probably end on here. So why don't we close out? We'll get to some Q&A with our YouTube folks here, but anything for the listener before we take off?
Just got so much stuff going on. I know Robert has some film breakdown stuff for DJ Moore coming up. I'm going to bug him and tell him to get some Nate Davis film breakdown because it's an offensive lineman. I know Robert wants to dig into that film, so I know he already has some stuff that he put on his Twitter account. So make sure you guys follow Robert Schmitz on Twitter with TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmunds. So, a ton of stuff. Talk about the podcast, free agency just starting. We got a ton of stuff going on at the site. Got it all covered here, podcast channel, and at Second City Gridiron, our YouTube channel. So stay tuned.
Yeah, and just the plug for Taylor Dahl's Making Monsters. She's got some fun plans coming up, so make sure you're checking that show out. If you haven't checked it out yet, make sure you spend some time to do that. We will end the podcast here, and until next time, bear down. Oh man, you froze with like a
Did I?
Yeah, just for like a second. Always,
That's not
that's like
good.
the fear that your face is going to freeze on some ridiculous thing. So I don't know how much cap's left, but plenty, right? I mean, they're
Yeah.
not. And they could still sign another premium player too.
I saw someone further down, they did a little napkin math. They said about 40-ish, 50-ish million, depending on what happens with Cody Whitehair, who again, I think he might stick around. I mean, we know the team values him. He was a team captain. He got some veteran days off during camp. They've talked him up quite a bit as a locker room presence, and so maybe he sticks around as that guy.
Oh, see this carrot cake thing. People
Carrot
knew about
cake,
it.
yeah.
Oh, I
We
guess it
don't care
was
anymore.
Adam Johns or Hogue, whatever. Okay,
The
I did not. I
Adams,
did not know that, but
the Adams dropped that carrot
good.
cake
Good for
nugget.
the Adams. Carrot cake again doesn't matter because he plays for the Giants.
He's a Giant.
I'm not worried about the centerpiece. I think that you can get. I think there's enough evidence out there that shows you can get a rookie center to come in, especially one that has multiple years of college experience. Big Ten centers, right? I'm just saying they're a safe bet.
There's Juice Scruggs from Penn State, John Michael Schmidt from Minnesota, and then of the Wisconsin guy is Joe Tippmann, I believe.
And then
All,
you haven't even said Wipler from
yeah,
Ohio State.
yeah. I mean, another one. I mean, there are so many guys at center. Like we talked about, it's a nice class for center and for guard. Cody Mount, he played some center at the Senior Bowl. Maybe he's the guy that Bears are targeting. So,
Yeah,
there's some options at center there. If Cody sticks around, kind of, has that mentorship role for a year, you bring in a rookie, he eventually takes over, and there's some nice options here. It's going to be fun for the Bears.
the Taylor piece of that, I mean, I just didn't see it from a fit perspective, but
I like Taylor because he's a better pass blocker.
he's a better
yeah.
pass blocker, but I don't know. I just didn't see him as the target, but it makes total sense that he would take that opportunity, right? I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
If someone calls you up and say, "Hey, man, I'm with the Chiefs. We want you to protect Patrick Mahomes' blindside." You're like, "Oh, okay."
If the Bears would have came over the top like a few million, I think he still says, "Nah, I'm going to Kansas City." So
yeah, I mean, they've won 2 rings in the last few years, and you get the best quarterback. Mahomes is on a path, right? Mahomes is on a path that he could just be the best ever. I mean, it's hard to say that because Brady and all the rings and all that kind of stuff and stuck around forever. Maybe he just put it into the stratosphere, but man,
he's on that path. Yeah,
he's unreal. So I get it. We kind of talked about the Tevin sticking at right guard. I mean, it would be such a weird conversation for them to be like, "Hey, man, we changed our mind. We want you at right tackle now." But who knows? I guess. I mean, I don't have any inside information, but I would be very surprised if that.
It does seem that was the sticking point last year when he had his. Tevin's gone. When he left kind of camp and he wasn't around, the rumors were that they were doing some internal discussion about, hey, you're not a tackle, my friend. You are a guard. Your arms are short. This regime seems to have threshold, which most regimes have these thresholds. A lot of them are like that. If you don't have a certain length, a certain athletic profile, you're going to go inside the guard. And, I can't see them asking to go back to tackle after all that happened last year. Plus, he looked damn good at right guard, so I think he may be the right guard. I think Nate Davis may be the left. Regardless, though, we have an entire offseason now.
Regardless.
Did I say irregardless?
No. You said regardless.
Oh,
man.
I missed that pun. Where's Patty? She would have been all over that one. So
man of words. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, I think this is right, John.
That's a good point. Yeah.
They put him at the will. He's fine. I mean, Roquan looked good. Like he probably could have done it just fine, but super good as an inside linebacker in a 3-4. Again, they traded him to the perfect spot.
Yeah.
They did him a solid, and obviously Baltimore was interested in enough to give them up because that's the fit. It's not just out of the goodness of their heart. They gave up the most, no doubt. But it worked. It worked out for all parties, is what I'm saying. I don't
Yep.
know if there are people crying in their Cheerios over the Roquan thing still, but they shouldn't. It worked out for the best. It was a very good way to maneuver out of that particular player for the Bears.
Plus, it helped the Bears secure the first overall draft pick, getting rid of some talent, bringing some draft
Secured
picks back.
secured
It
the tank.
helped, you know.
Yeah,
It helped the tank.
yeah. That's a good point. Securing the tank. That's kind of a sad thing. Man, I'm sorry that you got to live in Green Bay. That's rough. But I think that this year is going to be a lot more fun
Yes.
for Bears fans.
Has Aaron Rodgers been traded yet? Has that come across yet?
I haven't seen it. Did you see there was a couple people doing it. There was one that was getting some dunked on. There was a Packers fan that was like, "You just saw what the Bears got for an unproven quarterback with the number 1 pick. Imagine what we could get for the 2-time MVP Super Bowl winning Aaron Rodgers," and like had, these expectations of like
3
first round picks and plus and a player. And it's like, do you dunk on them or do you like encourage them so that they will get more and more pumped up just to like fall flat on their face? They're not getting anything, man. I mean, like, second, third round.
If they get a second, I'd be surprised from the Jets. I just, it's funny. I had the NFL Network on, in the background. I was working all day, and obviously it was a big talk because Aaron Rodgers likes to be the big talk of things on these events, and
loves it.
They were talking about him so much, and how he's basically holding the Jets and the Packers hostage. It's like, Jimmy Garoppolo signs away today. Derek Carr has already signed away, so it's like, some of these veteran quarterback moves are happening. If the Jets don't get Aaron Rodgers, they have to pivot and do what? I mean, what's Carson Wentz? I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to roll with Zach Wilson? I mean, what do the Jets do? And they lost Mike White, who was there and a popular player with them. He's gone now, so it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous, and it's exactly what he wants.
Yeah.
he is this is who he is. Like, he is absolutely the prima donna. So I don't know if this helps, guys. Questions about Nate Davis playing guard. This is his Pro Football Reference page, and he's just listed at right guard for those first 3 years, and then guard only in that 4th year.
Pro Football Focus, they have a tracking thing. So if anyone out there has a Pro Football Focus subscription, you can look that up and see exactly where he's played. You can share that in our chat. We'll make sure we share that for you. And if not, we'll are definitely going to get to the bottom. We'll talk to one of our PFF guys, and PFF Brad, I'm sure, will be nice enough to kind of pass that info along to us. And I know we got a couple guys that are on the team that are actually members. So we'll find that out, because I'm curious to know if he's only exclusively been a right guard.
Yeah, because sometimes if it just says guard, then that means that he may have taken reps at both spots, is where I was going with that. But if it says right guard, that pretty much means that's what he was. So it's just something for us to look into. But I saw somebody tweeted out, again, I don't remember who or what, you never know. And then when I was looking at his Pro Football Reference page, that's what I saw. So again, it doesn't mean you can't switch, but I know that it's pretty hard to do that, particularly this far into your career. All your muscle memory is on that side. So it's not impossible, but again, that's something to consider. That you're going in, you're having a guy flip sides. That's the famous story that I know of, famous because he talks about it, is Jeff Schwartz was asked to do that. And then he got hurt because he took a false step, because he was so used to stepping the other way. So when he dropped back in pass pro, he took a false step and something didn't land right because of that, hurt himself, and then just could not get himself out of the injury because of that. But if he was playing his natural position, it wouldn't have happened, right? Or he probably, whatever, you don't know what would have happened, but that wouldn't have happened, right? That false step wouldn't happen because that muscle memory wasn't there. So I think that stuff's really important. I mean, you and I both played a little bit in our lives, clearly not at that level, but at that point, so some things are just so ingrained in you that it can be really hard to flip to the other side. And the other thing, I keep seeing it, right, is this idea of like, well, we just kick Braxton Jones down to guard. It's like, dude, no, like he's got the length that they want. He did pretty well. He every snap. He took every snap at left tackle. The idea that you can just kick a guy like that into guard when you don't have to is a hard one for me, right? Like, because you don't know if those skill sets are different, and so it's hard for me to just kick a tackle into guard as this like magical wand solution here. So, man, just been seeing it a lot. I just don't love it.
It is easier for some guys to go left tackle to left guard than it is go from left tackle to right tackle. Some guys have it's the muscle memory in their footwork is easier. There's other guys that, they can make that switch because it's all how you're wired up top here. And some guys just can't do it. A guy like Braxton Jones, I don't see guard when I look at him because of the length.
Right.
I just think that things happen quicker when you're on the interior. You
get into you faster, and when you got that length, it works against you inside. Yes, exactly. So yeah, I see the same thing.
Plus, I mean, the nice thing is though about the Bears now, I mean, they got Nate Davis in the fold. They have if Cody Whitehair, whether he's here or not, they have an entire offseason now to let these guys know the plan. And it seems like that's what they wanted to do with Jenkins last year, but the way the roster kind of worked out, they had to wait. You have the whole offseason now. You like your guys in certain spots. Hopefully they learn their spot, and they go from there.
This is a bold statement, Cornelius, but looks as good or better than Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is up there, right?
Well, this is the comp when the Bears made the trade.
But if he can, because of the
timeline with Josh Allen,
a top target, yeah. But maybe, right? Like this, I would love to see what he looks like with premier passing targets and focus and all that. I mean, he was playing with a mess the last couple of years.
Quarterbacks were bad.
Mess.
His best quarterback was Cam Newton, but that was when Cam Newton was towards the end.
Shoulder. Yep.
Yeah.
He's really good. DJ Moore is really good.
Yeah.
So Stephon Diggs, you could argue, is in that, like, you start talking about the best wide receivers in the league, it doesn't take you very long to mention Stephon Diggs, right? Like that. Yeah. That's how good he is, and he's kind of taken his game to the next level of in the last couple of years. But yeah, I'd love to see that people start talking about DJ Moore in that way after this year, right? Because Fields and him elevate each other up to that level. He just gets open. He's so much faster than you think he is.
He is a number one open. Too.
Oh, 100%. Anybody tells you that he's not, it doesn't understand what wide receiver one is. You can run your offense through him.
Yep.
That's what a wide receiver one is. Now, that was the thing with Mooney. You can't really do that with Mooney, but he's a really good wide receiver, but he's so much better as a wide receiver too. He makes this. Yeah, go ahead and make it.
This puts everyone in their place,
Right.
Chase Claypool can do what he can do. With Mooney's doing what he can do. Velus Jones now. There's no pressure on Velus Jones. Now he is going to be a true gadget guy. My guess is as the number 4, number 5 receiver. Equinemius will get his reps here and there, play some special teams, and you know what? Maybe they do go with another receiver in the draft because it's a pretty good receiving class again, like it usually is. And Chase Claypool only has another year on his deal. Mooney is only another year on his deal. So maybe you add another one. You kind of let the chips fall where they may, because add good talent to your roster, let them battle, and see what happens.
This is an interesting idea. I believe this would be for the Jets. Go to give up the 2 firsts for Lamar, or at least try. Right, you have to sign. And then hope that you make up enough of a poison pill that Baltimore can't match it, and they take the picks, and Baltimore starts over, which would be pretty fascinating, right? I don't know that what you'd have to do to make that happen, but yeah, interesting. I mean, I love this stuff. I could talk.
Teams can't negotiate with Lamar until Wednesday, is what they were talking about on the NFL Network today, because he's a free agent. He's
official league year then. Yeah, so. Okay, interesting. Question about Borum. Is he a good NFL backup, or can he become one? Yeah, I think that's what we've always kind of thought of him as, an ideal swing tackle.
And then this last year, he got some guard reps. So again, that helps him extend his career. If you're not a starter, you got to show you can be versatile. He kind of showed that left side, right side. Now he got some guard under his belt. So, he's a guy that I'm sure this whole offseason has been working on getting plenty of reps at all these different spots. I'm sure he's going to one of those schools. I think I saw something where he was doing some work with some other Barrow linemen. He's always put the work in, so that's good to see. I like Borum as a player. I think he's I just don't want him as my starter. You know what I mean? I think he's in a good place here. He comes in, he kind of be your swing guy, play a few spots, and again, he can't be your number one right tackle, but if he's your backup, playing a few snaps here and there in a pinch, until you have a better backup, I think he's okay.
Yeah, I think that's I feel like we've been talking about Borum as a swing for quite a while, probably since this show started.
Yeah.
That we've said, yeah, we'd love to see him as a swing, but when you come in and you count on him as a starter to enter a year, you're in some trouble, and that sort of proved itself out. But yeah, again, I think, like you said, he puts the work in. He's shown that he can flip back and forth. Maybe he can play guard in a pinch too. Like those are valuable linemen, right? And it's not bad for the Bears to have a guy like that has the experience, but you don't want to count on him. It's kind of in a way. This is kind of like so many of these moves have put the players that we've already kind of liked in their proper position, right? And we don't have a right tackle yet, but I'm thinking about that. The wide receiver, DJ Moore, you get Mooney and Claypool where they should be, right? The linebackers, I can't get over this. Like, yes, like Sanborn, the idea was though that like Sanborn was probably going to be your Mike and be a starter and be on the field a lot, and he's not quite athletic enough to do all the things that you want him to do. But you put him at the Sam and he's a core special teamer and he can back up your Mike. It's a perfect spot for Jack Sanborn. Yeah. He continue to be a fan favorite, but he's in the perfect spot now. You did the things that you needed to do to put him in the perfect spot. So that group is taken care of. You still need to see something happen with another corner, whether that's a nickel corner or whether that's an outside corner, and figure out where you're going to put Kyler Gordon. And then you have your secondary pretty much figured out, right? Maybe you need somebody to kind of play a big nickel safety, whatever. But like for the most part, secondary is almost there. It's just a lot of work to be done on the line. A lot of work to be done on that defensive line. So again, four premium draft selections, on day one, day two, those are going to do a lot of work, right? You hope to get 4 guys that can contribute early, but nothing is done though. There's plenty still to be done here. So anything else you want to cover? I think I went through most of the comments, and thanks guys for hitting up the comments.
I saw one question earlier. Someone asked about Alex Leatherwood. And that's a guy that we haven't really talked much about, but I mean, again, former first-round draft pick. I'm not sure the Bears are counting on him to be a starter quality, but and if he can come in camp and show that he's worthy of a meaningful roster spot, I think that bodes well for the Bears. But I don't think he's a guy they're going to expect to start. I think they're going to kind of go out and either sign a guy or draft a guy and kind of put in there. And if Leatherwood wins a job, beats out your rookie, that's great.
Jonathan, I do not know if this is directed at either of us, but you would be wrong. It might be your first time.
I think there was some must for love going on in the chat there. So,
well, I was going to say, it might be his first time here if he was directing that at us and yelling it for some reason in all caps, because no, the answer is no to that one. Although he may come back as a backup. But just don't. No, because
it's best to cut ties, I think. Yeah.
There's a voodoo going on. I'm telling you, he injured the 2 people that they brought in to overtake him, and he managed to keep himself on the field. There's something going on in the dark arts with Sam Mustipher. I can't prove it, but I can't wait for the 30 for 30 to come out in a few years, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's best to cut ties. He's an RFA, so they could technically bring him back if they want to tender him. I guess they don't tender him, and then they let him become a unrestricted free agent. So maybe he finds a gig somewhere else, which would be fine by me.
He's got the experience. He'll probably stick in the league for a little while longer. I just don't think it's. I hope it's not navy and orange, but I'm just sick of talking about him, and I'm sick of fighting with his family online and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I'm done with it. So, all right, I think we'll leave it there. A lot of stuff coming up. We're going to have a lot of fun building the board, still rocking and rolling. I know I haven't done much with that, but Robert Schmitz is really killing it. Jacob Infante is really killing it. A lot of those guys are contributing. They're watching a lot of film. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're still trying to get some stuff lined up for draft night, which will be a lot of fun. We hope you guys can join us either live or with a live stream. We will
We're
have
going to be at High Noon Brewery in Lombard, I think it is. I might be butchering the name of the bar there, but it's on our Facebook page. We've shared it on Twitter a few times, but we are definitely going to have a WCG meetup. I know Mason West, Danny Meehan, they're going to be there. Robert Schmitz will be doing a live stream for the entire first round. We'll have our guys popping in and out, so then we'll have Mason, on site there at High Noon in Lombard. So look for that.
Love it. And yeah, hopefully some other announcements, but I'm not comfortable announcing anything until I know. Yeah, man, it's just fun. Today was fun.
Good day.
Bears got better today. Hopefully you got better as well. We'll leave it there, guys, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.